Good afternoon. This is Neeru Deep from Center for Positivity, Wellbeing and Hope. I am with Dr. McLaren, a professor of Clarinet, Department of Music at NSU, and she will be sharing with us her knowledge and wisdom about performance anxiety. It is not just for the musician. Welcome, Dr. McLaren.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, this is new initiative about the Week Talk. So, tell me little bit about so student can understand what is your education and what is your experience.
Sure. So, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and received a bachelor in music education from the University of New Mexico, and then stayed there as well for a master's degree in clarinet performance. And it was in the middle of that degree that I decided I really wanted to continue on studying and wanted to eventually teach at the college level. So I went to the University of North Texas, and that's where I got the Doctor of Musical Arts degree. Um, and so I feel like I've had such a great journey to get to this point, to be able to teach with some background in music education, really learning how the brain learns and some of those skills, and then really diving much deeper into performance and all the things that go with that, and performing quite a bit myself, and now helping students to do the same thing. So that's what I'm here to share today.
That is wonderful journey of education. So, student can get motivated and they can be in your the same similar path on. Um, so tell us little bit about. I know that you win so many award, professorships. So tell us little bit about your experience and your performance experience in different countries.
Sure. I feel so fortunate to have been able to travel. One of my dreams in high school was to travel and to see the world. And music has really done that for me, just opened door after door after door. And I just felt like the more I was prepared for opportunities and was able to take advantage of opportunities that came my way, each one opened a new door and a new door and a new door. And so it started with my first year of college. We did a tour through Mexico, which was such an education for me, just in people and in the world, and it was a great experience on so many levels. And then to more recently, I've been very fortunate to receive several professorships over the years, and have been able to travel most recently to Spain and to Belgium to both do research and present research and to perform and even to teach a little bit. Spain is the area where a lot of my research originates. I've been able to do some archival research there and have made some friends in the clarinet world over there. So to be able to go and perform and teach students of my friends has been such a great experience and made all sorts of connections. So it's just something that's grown. I hope I get to do more. That's my plan, is to continue to look for more opportunities, and do some research, even more research in Spain, and to continue to perform. So very lucky.
So tell me a little bit about like if a student want to take this education, what step you will guide them to do it?
Well, first, it's a daily commitment, especially in music. You have to practice your instrument. you,
Yes,
there's
definitely.
there's no way around it. You just have to do the work. That is one of many things in life that there is no shortcut for. You just have to commit every day to do the work. But I think having some long-term goals in mind and some short-term goals, and asking for guidance and mentorship along the way, and I think the hard work speaks for itself, and patience. You got to be ready when the opportunities come, but you can't hurry much of this along. And so I think just learning to accept the personal responsibility of doing the hard work and being prepared for those opportunities. And that way, when they arise, things will move very quickly when they move, but you've got to be ready for it. So that would be my advice to start. And the sky's the limit. Don't let someone telling you can't do it make you not do it. There are many things we can do if we put our mind to it.
No, that is wonderful advice. And student who wants to do this, again, this is a passion and again persistence and patience that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve. So today topic is performance anxiety. Most of the time we talk about performance anxiety in light of just music performance or stage performance, but you will be talking more about not just in the perspective of music or stage. You will be talking, it is not just for the musicians. So thank you so much for broadening this topic for our students. So tell us a little bit about what is actually performance anxiety.
Sure. Well, I think we all know what it feels like when we get very nervous and we're afraid to either do what it is we need to do, whether it's on a stage or in another situation. But it's a trigger that happens in your brain, and it sends a signal that puts you in this at the extreme end of it, in this fight or flight sort of state,
Mhm,
where if you go back thousands of years, where we were basically running from lions trying not to be eaten. I mean, it seems silly, but that's the same trigger where you feel like it's a life or death situation. Which is why sometimes this stage fright idea, it's very real, and it feels, your brain may not know the difference between I am about to die versus I'm just simply standing on a stage or in a situation that feels like a stage. So it's a real thing. It's an extreme adrenaline rush, and can really, in doing that, it prepares the large muscles for either fighting or running.
mhm.
And so understanding that it happens, a physical reaction to things, I think gives it a tangible, that it's something you can recognize and see, and try and control a little bit. So that's what it is. It's not a myth. It really does happen. Um,
So what
there's a
gives
lot of cues that can happen. Your body does, and everyone's a little different. So some people get very hot, very sweaty. Some people actually shake. Some people just freeze, simply can't do anything. Couldn't tell you their name if you asked them. Those sorts of things. Yeah, it's a good thing. It means you care. When you get nervous like that, it means it's something that you care about. So yeah.
but of course, they can see their physical cues. Maybe for somebody it is just a sweating, and somebody it is a freezing. So
Hmm.
both moment can be different for different people. So what
Yeah.
strategies they can use to make sure that they can keep this performance anxiety under control?
Sure, absolutely. And I think first recognize, one, that it's something that does happen in your brain, and recognize those physical cues, and you've got to recognize your own. Everybody's a little different. Some people have shortness of breath, the pounding heartbeat, dry mouth, or the opposite. You feel like you can't swallow enough. Sometimes your hearing can become very, very focused, almost like, instead of tunnel vision, it's like tunnel hearing. Some people's stomach hurts very much, those sorts of things. So you have to identify what happens to you, and also remember, like I keep talking about, like it's on a stage, but this feeling can come about anytime you feel like you're on the spot, whether it's taking a test, whether you're having to do a public speech for any reason, and that could be in front of 3 people or 300 people. It happens in sports. There's a whole category of sports psychology where they talk about performance anxiety. It can even happen something as simple as talking to a new person, talking to your professor, or even asking a question in class. Some people get very nervous doing that. I can hear sometimes when I teach a shaky voice or see the hand shaking, and it's something as simple as asking a question in class. So, first, you have to recognize the situation and what's happening and those physical cues, and I think just recognizing it and naming it is the first strategy. The more you try and pretend like it's not happening, or get afraid of it, I think it only gets worse. I noticed that in myself and in my students. But being able to see it and have some logic and some rationale behind it, kind of reason what the situation is, so you know that it's not life or death. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. It's just what the situation is. Again, knowing your physical cues, so you know what you're dealing with. Um, there are some things you can do to counteract those physical cues, and we'll talk more about those in a second. But just practicing some breathing exercises that send a different signal to your brain, so it helps to relieve some of that fight or flight mechanism. Visualization, you're just really picturing a positive outcome, whether it's something as big as a performance, or taking a test, or talking to someone. Really visualizing that it's a positive outcome. Also just there's some things you can kind of rehearse beforehand, so if you know what happens in your physical cues. And one of the techniques I use sometimes, if I'm performing at a big conference or a big event like that, of course I still get nervous. That's part of the experience. But I will detach myself a little bit from this feeling of that it's life or death by simply looking at pictures of my family or
Ah,
things like that to remind myself that this is one moment in
uh-huh,
a much bigger picture. So this is going to, before I know it, I'm going to be done performing and on with my day. And so it's just one thing in the day. So I think it helps me to be in that present moment and recognize it for what it is, recognizing I'm nervous because I care,
mhm,
but that it's not a life or death situation. So that mindfulness and learning to kind of be in that present moment. And you can do things as simple as feeling your breathing for a moment, feeling your breathing on your nostrils or in your throat,
mhm,
just to get yourself into that grounded feeling in that present moment. Even feeling the air conditioning on your skin, just to kind of detach from this life or death feeling. Sometimes I'll just really feel like my feet are firmly on the ground and that I'm really just
mhm,
there and steady, that I could handle anything, just very grounded and confident. And that helps me to just kind of be into that moment and
mhm.
try and enjoy it as much as I can. One thing I
Okay.
do tell my students, though, is to first and foremost to separate performance anxiety from preparation anxiety.
Yes, definitely,
So,
definitely. They have to prepare, so in
yes,
this way they can understand.
exactly. If you're not prepared for the moment, and this has more to do with performances or a test or a big speech you have to give, you need to prepare for those. So if you're not prepared and you're nervous, that's a different type of anxiety.
Yes.
And that's, you have much more control over that in leading up to that moment. So
Uh-huh.
you have to understand also in performing, whether it's a test or music or theater or any of that, just knowing the material is a different skill than being able to use that material. So when I perform, just because I can play through my music does not mean that I'm ready to perform it. That's the
Mhm,
first step. Then I must practice performing it. And
mhm,
so that's where I think getting rid of that preparation anxiety, it goes a little deeper than a lot of people realize. So you have to take some personal responsibility on that one and make
mhm.
sure that you don't have preparation anxiety. So,
Very good point. Like, make sure to separate preparation anxiety with performance anxiety. Make
yes.
sure to be prepared 100%, either you are performing or even taking tests or even want to talk to your professor one on one. You have to prepare, and then you practice, then you can do performance well. And then in performance too, that if whenever you have anxiety, you make sure to understand your physical cues first, so you can practice what work best for you. For example, you talk about that you see picture of your family. For some people, maybe it is just concentrating on your breath, or be mindful, or visualization, or see the outcome. You gave us lot of tips, so student can understand that there is not just one method fit for all. Maybe they can pick and choose, but they have to make sure that they will practice first, and also know what cues are there, and how, what kind of a strategy they can use to help themselves. Very, very good points.
And
Um,
ideally, if you know your physical cues and you can counteract performance anxiety before you get to the fight or flight moment,
mhm,
it's much more effective. So if you know my stomach starts to feel a little queasy when I start to get nervous,
mhm,
you can do whatever it is that helps you, breathing exercises, visualization, whatever you find works for you before you're so afraid that you're frozen. It is, I will say, it is more difficult to bring yourself to dial it back when you're already there. You can
mhm,
do it, but
mhm.
if you learn your cues and you can catch it before you get to that point, it's less of a problem, you know.
So basically, they can actually. I was about to ask this question: how they can avoid it. So basically, they have to prepare for it, right? So what
Yes.
cues they have it. So what kind of strategy they want to do it. So even they, for example, if I am going for a test and I am already feeling nervous, it means before even feeling nervous, I should know how to calm myself down, And if by chance I cannot avoid it, I hit with that nervousness. So I should know what kind of a strategy I can use to avoid the full fledged of anxiety or
Yes.
okay. That's very
Yes.
very good. So they can avoid it, and if they cannot avoid it, they can at least, if they are feeling some kind of a performance anxiety, they can at least use strategies that you shared with us.
Yes, and you know you can even go further on those, and I think you know this one I think is so valuable, and it took me a while to learn, but beyond just practicing the performance, whatever it is, you want to go through as if you're doing it, performing several times, and again for whatever that is, a speech for sure, a musical or a theater performance for sure, but again even for test taking to do, that's why we do practice tests for those big tests, because you practice the experience and not to get it perfect. We're human, we're not going to get everything perfect, but to practice recovering from the moments that we stumble. They will happen. It's those are really unavoidable. Maybe a few times in your life you'll have a perfect test or a perfect performance. So enjoy it when it happens because it's not the norm. But if you practice doing it and you practice recovering from the
Mhm,
missteps, the stumbles, the moments where you kind of feel like you're not, and then you can get right back on,
mhm,
those are so valuable to just the practice, the recovery. I think some of the best performances I've had are as a result of having to recover from something or deal with an issue that I wasn't anticipating. Noise in the hallway next door, or something happened in the hall. I had to do a recital one time. We lost power in the building. So we moved outside.
mhm.
We just had to do it. And we had so much fun, and it was a wonderful performance. I had someone holding my music, standing up there because it was too windy to put it on a stand. But we ended up having a great performance that way. So I think just being able to deal with whatever comes your way so it doesn't throw you off. There's a quote I love, and I'm sorry I don't remember who said it, but it's the artistry is in the recovery.
Very
Um,
nice, very
and I
nice.
think that's, those are I just love that quote. So I think practicing recovering, and making, as you mentioned, these strategies to stop the feelings of nerves beforehand, really making these a daily practice, or, at least somewhat daily, so that you know how to do it. If you don't practice breathing exercises beforehand, you won't know how to use them when you need them.
Mhm,
If you don't practice any sort of mindfulness or visualization exercises before, you won't know how to use them when
mhm.
you need them. So I think it's important to incorporate a little bit of that um, in your
Absolutely.
daily routine,
Mhm,
um, and then you have a plan. You know what works for you. You know what your cues are. You
mhm,
know how to use the things that help you to bring it under control. You know you're prepared. You know you can recover from anything, and you'll be fine. And then you have it in perspective. It's not the end of the world. It's not life or death. It's a moment. It's important, and that's why you're nervous, because it's important to you, but it is just a snapshot of your day. It's okay.
I love the idea. Sometimes we do not even think about that. Most of the time when the things goes in the wrong direction, right? People cry, have even anxiety, and go downhill. And I really like the idea of doing the recovery, practicing the recovery. If something will go bad, how we will recover. So in this way, our mind will be ready. And I
Mhm.
really like your idea of saying to student that okay, you have to practice deep breathing, you have to visualize it, so it will be your habit.
Mhm.
So whenever you need it, you can just pick up that habit of doing deep breathing or visualization or mindfulness. So in this way, you will be successful or recover faster too. That is wonderful. Any last advice you would like to give it to student?
Well, maybe just a couple of things. I think all of those things we talked about are what help to build confidence.
Hmm.
And confidence is what I think helps to lead for, when you see those people performing, and again, the public speakers or musicians or actors or any sort of performance that you really admire and that do well, they have a sort of confidence about them and I think it's because of these things. They've practiced these things. They know that they will recover from whatever happens, and that it's okay. It's not life or death.
Hmm.
Understanding that you're not, the adrenaline is actually a good thing. I always tell my students, use that adrenaline for good instead of evil. it
Mhm.
probably won't ever go away, but if you understand why it's happening and know how to deal with it, it can be a wonderful thing. It's what keeps people performing. That adrenaline rush is really cool and awesome when you can use it for a great performance, and that's what keeps people going on the stage, you know. um, there's another, I'm sorry, we have quotes and I don't remember who says them, and so I'm sorry, but another
Mhm.
one that I like, and I think I heard this in some sort of sports psychology actually that I was reading, but I read it somewhere, and it's don't listen to yourself, talk to yourself.
Mhm.
So you realize you have control of this situation. You get to make the choices of how you will respond to this and what you will tell yourself, rather than listening to that little voice in your head tell you that something's going to go wrong.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to believe it. You can change the narrative,
Uh-huh. I
and so that's good.
I like this advice, and the way I think the we do need to practice breathing and all that stuff. Plus, we need to understand that we have to practice positive thinking and positive talking to ourselves too. So, whenever it is a negative time, we can actually positively talk to ourselves to uplift ourselves. So, very good. And listening and talking, they have to remember that. So thank you so much, student. If you have any question from Dr. McLaren or this presentation, please send it to positivity at nsula.edu. Make sure to write her name on the subject line, and we will be glad to answer that question. Um, Again, we will keep this on our website www.nsula.edu slash positivity. And again, you send us question, we will answer it. But if you want to send some of your performance or some artwork, please make sure to email us too so we can post it. I personally believe that, like you said, that confidence is the key. And the same way, I believe that believe in yourself and act of performance will be flawless. Believing in yourself is the key that actually build the confidence too. So, you want to say William James, that your
Sure.
quote?
Sure. Yes, I love this one. He says, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. I just love
Yes,
that. It takes that feeling of helplessness away.
yes.
Knowing that you have tools to help you
Okay.
get through that moment. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And you understand that that nervous feeling is actually excitement. You can
Mhm.
change the adjective for it. It can be excitement and that sort of thing versus fear.
And I love this quote that you send it, put it here. So I want to add one more thing. Like when we are in nervousness, people have that talking too much stuff is going in their head. So William James basically tell us that okay, just take one thought at a time and deal with that. In this way you will be focused. So thank you so much, Dr. McLaren, for sharing your time, your wisdom with us. And I can tell you that student will be very happy to listen this presentation, and hopefully we will get a lot of question from them, and we can do it even if they want, we can do it a live session with them. So
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
student, if you have any feedback or comment or question, make sure to email us positivity at nsula.edu. Thank you so much for your time and
Yes, of
truly
course.
grateful and good evening.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.